Welcome to Owning Pleasure as a Black Woman, where we celebrate the joy in just being you. I'm Natasha, your certified sex and intimacy coach and clinical sexologist. Just call me your guide to unlocking pleasure. With years of experience in helping individuals embrace pleasure beyond sex, I'm here to empower you to rediscover the beauty of pleasure in every aspect of life. So settle in, relax, and get ready to savor the wisdom and insights we're about to drop. This is your space to be present, learn, and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Owning Pleasure as a Black Woman. I am so excited to have you here with me as we talk all things pleasure, desire, satisfaction, joy, all the good things that I feel like many people aren't talking about anymore for Black women. So this episode, I'm really excited to bring it to you the way that I can bring it to you. And I am going to go ahead and ask up front that you give this episode some grace because technology was doing what technology does when I record this episode. So I have some amazing guests, my Libra sisters on that I'm going to introduce shortly. However, while we were recording this episode, it caught their voices. It did not catch me asking the questions and engaging with them. So because it was good information and I don't want them to have to go back and re-record everything, I have them speaking and I'm going to give you context to their answers. Straight shit show. But I wanted to make sure that you had the information because it was really good and I love them so much and they're so full of just the knowledge when it comes to this particular topic. So again, I ask for grace. I ask for grace and compassion during this episode. But before we get into our topic for today, I just want to ask you, are you ready to feel empowered to indulge your truest passions at the Cocoa and Champagne Circle? So this circle is a judgment-free sisterhood focused on desire, not status. You know how every time you go to a meeting, it's like, oh, what do you do? How much money do you make? Are you on social media? This is not that. So I would love for you to go ahead and secure your spot now. The link is in the show notes, and we're going to raise our glasses to more pleasure, connection, and living out our deepest desires. Now listen, Mother's Day is around the corner. Legit tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this, it will have passed. But Mother's Day is around the corner, and while for some, it's a day of love and happiness and joy and just being around family and loved ones, for others, this may not be the case. There may be some wounds that are unearthed during this time. There may be some frustrations and some activations because we are moving out of same triggers, but there may be some activations that you're feeling around this time. And so I wanted to talk to the mother wound. Everyone has a mother wound, okay? You will hear that said in this episode. Everyone has a mother wound. Some may just be a little bit more traumatic, a little bit deeper, a little bit more negative than others. So in this episode, I have my wonderful, wonderful Libra sisters, Myra and Tee, coming in to talk about how the mother wound comes about, what it is, and how to manage such a sensitive space, especially around this time of the year. So Myra Black, she is a North Carolina native who serves her community through her gifts of mediumship and teaching. She is a cosmic translator, nurturer, wife, daughter, sister, and an auntie. And her life's mission is to teach others how to alchemize their fears into authenticity. And Tamika James is an intuitive, she's a certified Reiki practitioner, and a postpartum doula that has a passion for all things related to healing and wellness. She is one half of the Myra and Tee podcast. Myra is the other half. She creates a space for conversations that go beneath the surface and focus on all things concerning spiritual practices. Outside of podcasting, Tamika is a dedicated mother, wife, and is very passionate about advocating for women and their right to be heard, nurtured, and experience bliss in all that they do. Okay, so in this particular clip that you are going to hear, I ask about what is the mother wound. When we think about a definition, because y'all know I'm a definition girly, what exactly would someone hear when someone says, "Hey, I have a mother wound," or "You have a mother wound?" So I'm going to let you hear the answer from my wonderful guests.
Okay, so just to give some background, so how T and I went on the journey of creating the ebook about mother wounds and really delving into that subject matter was in preparation for beginning our podcast. So our first episodes were redefining the mother. And we realized in redefining the mother how a lot of the different characteristics that we considered great mothering or the pinnacle archetypes that you see in our community of what a mother is, how a lot of those things had like a polarity to them. It was where, the mother was super nurturing and she overgave, and that may have led into self sacrifice. So once you get into a space of being in self sacrificing mode, how does that impact how you interact with your children? So I would say before we go into like how to identify what a mother womb is and what is it specifically, I feel like you have to really trace it back and really consider where was your mother's where was she at when she was raising you? Was she supported? Was she given a great example of what motherhood was? Was she stressed? Was she overworked? Because all of those things thread together to create the unfortunate perfect breeding ground for mother wounds.
Taking into consideration, and this is something that I always talk to, because a good percentage, over half of the percentage of the clients that I see have some type of disgruntled relationship with their mom. And so listening to Myra talk about acknowledging where our moms were, what they went through when they did become our mothers, was very interesting to hear. And so I go on to share that I knew when I became a mom that I wanted to be the opposite of my mom. And by that, I mean, I've always seen my mom bend over backwards. Her life was about her children and her family. And though there's nothing wrong with that, I just knew that that's not something that I wanted. I did not want my all to be in my children. That is just something that I knew. And so, my next question, before we go there, I realized as I was listening to this that we didn't really get into what a mother wound was. So I do want to share with you the definition. Okay. A mother wound refers to psychological pain or some type of trauma that arises within a relationship with one and their mother. So this typically is coming from any unmet emotional needs, any neglect, abuse, or dysfunctional dynamics. Now, take into consideration that is, there are some things that are blatant neglect and abuse, and then there are some things it could be subjective depending on the person. Okay? This concept is often discussed in the context of psychological and therapeutic work, particularly in understanding how our early experiences with our mothers can shape our self esteem, the relationships that we have with people, friendships, and our overall emotional well being. So when you hear the term mother wound, it's usually acknowledging the impact that our maternal relationship can have on our development and our sense of self. So usually therapy and self-reflection can help address these and heal from these wounds. And what I want you to understand as a Black woman, and we talk about this a little bit, is that this is not just stop at our mothers, okay? This goes beyond our mothers. So when we talk about mother wound, take into consideration that epigenetic line, that DNA line, and where we come from when it comes to the things that our matriarchy has had to deal with in the past. So this next clip, it's kind of giving you a little bit of an idea of what some of the wounds are. And I also shared a little bit about my experience with wanting to be the opposite of what my mother did.
Hey, that's how it is. And I think even you saying that too, just to add, because Tamara covered it perfectly, but to add to that, even you saying like, hey, this is how my experience was, I think that's a big component of it too. In addition to seeing where your mother was and being able to have grace there, you have to also acknowledge your inner child too to say, hey, it might have been some things I was missing in my experience. And so, how can I redefine that as, Tamara perfectly pointed out. So it's really a multifaceted process. I would definitely contribute to that.
Absolutely. And it's not pretty. So, some common wounds, of course, would be like abandonment. That's a big one. And unfortunately, our our world, we live in a capitalistic society where mothers have to leave their children earlier on if they're in the workforce, or there's this pressure for them to um, automatically bounce back after 6 weeks. So it's kind of embedded in our culture to abandon our babies in a lot of ways. So that is probably one of the biggest ones that I tend to recognize, and I've even seen in my own life where it's not intentional. It's not one of those things where it's malicious, but again, it's carefully woven into our society as it being a normal thing to just continue on, especially after you just had a child. And it's like, okay, what type of effect does that have in the long term? So that's a really big one for sure. That I think a lot of your listeners, if we had to really strip it down to its bare essence, abandonment and mother wounds, I feel like they show up in its simplest form in that type of classification.
Now, Myra talked about abandonment. However, I came in and I added the fact that there is rejection and there's people pleasing. And those are two things on top of abandonment that I've recognized in my clients. People pleasing is just that whole, I just want you to love me. Like, I want someone to come in and I'm going to do everything that I can, because that is what some of them did, right? Like, no matter what I did, my mom was never happy, or she never showed me affection, or she never was happy with me. And so I was just constantly trying to do something to get her attention. So it comes out in rejection and people pleasing. And then we kind of talked about, how do you manage the mother wound? So you have this self awareness. Okay, I think I have a mother wound. So you're listening to this. I think I have a mother wound. What?
So I think when it comes to how to manage, um, of course, anything we how we manage a lot of things is what I'm trying to say. It's layers. It's so many layers and it's so many levels to things. So I think after the initial awareness of the things that you're trying to manage, you have to just do the. I mean, people use this cliche, do the work, but it is a lot of healing work. That I feel that you have to do in order to start to gain a better control over the things, because there's a lot of things that were passed down that we may not even recognize, or children do a lot of modeling after their parents, and so something like an abandonment wound like shame, you may not even realize where you got it from. You may not realize that you even got it from your mother. Then once you realize you got it from your mother, then where did she get it from? And then you have to uncover so many layers. So I think the main thing is to give yourself time, manage it bit by bit, because it could be a lot once you get to really uncovering those layers.
I agree. And I also think like in uncovering those layers, you also grace. Grace is one of those words that honestly you have to always put in your heart, in your pocket, in your purse, wherever. Like you need grace, because the grace for yourself is going to be honest and saying, okay, as a child, I really never felt like you liked me. Or I never really felt like, I felt like you resented me, because that's what it is. So now I'm in a space where I have to do something for you out of obligation. And that's hard for me. What is so wrong about saying that? Will it be the end of the world? You know, will it change the fact that, you still want to support this person, but giving yourself that room to just be honest and not try to mask it as I'm enjoying helping this person, even though um I haven't always felt helped and supported by them. And to be honest, even when you describe that, I honestly, taking away the fact that we're talking about an elder adult and a adult child that's having to care, give, and support in later stages in life, I feel like it's still two little children. It's still two people operating from their inner child. So I feel like if one person has that awareness and one person is on the journey of healing their inner child, that grace element will automatically kick in where you're like, okay, my mama, she 80 and she is stuck in her way. But again, like T said, that way came from something that she was taught. But going around the mulberry bush with this answer, I would say grace and, like T said, doing your work and really recognizing that it all goes back to the inner child. And just because someone is your mom, your grandmother, it doesn't take away from the fact that they still have an inner child that has some shadows that they are processing through as well.
So that statement blew my mind. So, for some context, I do believe that I asked a question about how do you manage being an older child with a mother wound and also having to caretake for that particular mother. Because I do have some instances where that's going on with clients, and it's this push and pull of you weren't really there for me the way I needed you to be there for me, but here I am being there for you. So that's the context of the caregiving. But what blew my mind and something that I didn't necessarily consider was the fact that while we are healing our inner child, our mothers are also healing their inner child or dealing with their inner child. It's still there. So when Myra mentioned two children engaging with each other, I could picture it in my mind when we come together with our mothers, two kids interacting, and each kid having a different experience and wanting something different or wanting nothing at all to do with that relationship based off of their history. So, no matter the age that you are at, everyone has an inner child, and that inner child is engaging in these particular relationships at some point in time. And that blew my mind and kind of opened my eyes to look at things a little differently. So, my next question that I went into was dealing with a mom that just doesn't like you and doesn't want anything to do with you from the moment that you came into the world to you growing up until you becoming grown. I'm good. I don't really want anything to do with you.
Yeah, I mean, and I think when it comes to that, it extends further than even just you and your mother. It's the same, with interacting in any of your relationships, really. A lot of us, we toggle between the lines of we are operating in our highest version of ourselves, and then we have our ego. And I think a lot of our ego is established by some of those, of course it's the darker energy or the darker frequencies. And if you experience that trauma in your childhood, then there's a good chance that those frequencies could still be in your ego, and so you may very well show up when triggered as the inner child version of you that's like, hey, I don't really like when you come at me like that. I'm getting fearful or I'm scared. And when I'm scared, or how I've learned to adapt with fear is to shut down from a 6-year-old child. So even when you're dealing, to Mara's point, with your mother is not, she may be a 45 or 65-year-old woman, but there are still aspects of her that are operating from a space of lack or a space of things that she didn't receive as a child. So I think just the same as you dealing with a coworker, when we're triggered, I think that's kind of who shows up first. your inner child, your inner teen, various past versions of yourself, you know? So that's my take on it.
I agree. I agree, and I love when T goes into her conversation about the inner teen, because the inner I, the inner child to me is a lot more. You see a lot of the people pleasing behaviors from that version of ourselves. To me, when you get to the inner teen, that is
Now, I wanted to pause there. Where you hear Myra saying, yeah, is where I interjected and I talked about the villain season. So basically, your inner teen comes in and is not necessarily a people pleaser, but wants to fuck some shit up. So think anger. I'm going at everybody. Vengeance, revenge, everybody. That emo kid where it's just like, I'll burn it all down. That is what I was talking about when she said yeah. So I just wanted to give you a little context because y'all are probably like, what is she saying yeah to? We can't hear.
the rebel. That is, yeah, 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 and that is the version of ourselves where we really did. We were right at this place of independence, but still having this protection of not quite being an adult. So you could really teeter between two versions of yourself at that time. And I definitely feel like the lashing out, the I've had enough, is that inner teen. Now, as you do this work and you integrate, all versions of yourself, and you love on all versions of yourself, I feel like you get to this place where you begin to see everybody's child, teen, young adult. If it's someone who has lived a longer life, you see them in their 30s, their 40s. Like, you see all these versions of people as you allow yourself to explore those versions as well. And I would also say this too. When you explore mother wounds, if the intention is to somehow um justify yourself as a victim, or justify yourself as the person who is now able to shift blame, you're missing the whole point of actually not only healing yourself but also healing your bloodline, because you're not the only person who has had some type of mother wound. It probably, not even probably, it happened to your mom, your grandma, your great grandmother, your great great grandmother, and it keeps going. So this is really heavy duty ancestral veneration work. This is divine feminine veneration work. And this is also something that has the capacity to not only heal you, but heal generations before you and after. So when you stand there in the middle of it and you really open your mind and heart to the process, it becomes so much bigger than saying she did me wrong.
Mm. Woo! Y'all, I feel like that was so deep, right? Like, it goes back to me telling you when you look at your mom and you interact with your mom, understand what you are interacting with, understand how deep it goes, understand that we were there for all the trauma. As crazy as that sounds, we were there for all the trauma because we are born with all the eggs that we're going to have. So just think we were there for it all, and it affects us in different types of ways. So just a grace, okay? Grace and compassion sometimes. Now, in this next segment, I asked about those that are holding out that hope, right? Hoping that their mothers will change and will welcome them with open arms. I love you so much, despite the fact that you see the pattern of who they are over and over and over again. And despite you seeing the pattern, you're still craving that love from your mom. So we talk a little bit about holding on to hope that someone is going to change.
Okay, so I definitely understand it being, you have to be prepared for whatever outcome. But hoping that someday, right, that your parents will see you, love you, hoping that your family would see you or love you. I don't think that's human nature. Like, I don't think that's something that you could turn off. It's something that, you could expand the idea and say, these people don't accept me, but my friends do. Or the organizations I belong to do. And I have family in all of these other places. So you're reclassifying, who is important in that regards and who gives you these things that ultimately you actually want to feel. But I don't think it's ever possible to take away the desire to feel nurtured, appreciated, and accepted. So I don't know. Like, that's a really interesting thing, because you want to protect, people, and you want to prepare them, but I just don't know if that's something you could actually turn off. Like, I don't think that's possible.
Okay, so those of you out there that are having hope that it will turn around and things will change, it's normal. But we also have to have the realistic idea that it might and be prepared if it doesn't. Now, this next segment, I asked about a mom being jealous of a daughter. I think that is something that we come across a lot in the Black community. We engage with moms that are jealous about what we've done with our lives and the things that we've been able to do and they haven't been able to do because either they got married, they had kids, either way. But we know those moms where it's just like, I don't like you, you're too pretty, you're too smart, and they talk down to you. This is what I wanted them to address.
I think that's very real. That I mean, that is a real life scenario. Um, sometimes I think this is I think we one of us has said this at some point, but taking more of the titles out of it and looking at your mother as a person, why wouldn't she? Like, why wouldn't there be a chance that she could ever be jealous of you? Like, I think we put certain archetypes and figures in our lives on pedestals, and we fail to realize that these are human beings having their very own human experience as well. So we may look at our mother as saying, why would you be jealous of me, or how could you even get to that space, or you've put them higher up, so you're looking up at them like, why are you acting this way? When the older you get, you may be on their same level. Like, I was watching an interview recently with Marlon Wayans, and he was talking about how he was the baby of the family, but him and his mother got along the best because he was, spent a lot of time with her. And one day he just looked at her and he was like, I looked at my mother and I didn't see my mother. I saw a 16-year-old girl, because that's when she started having children, and that's where, she probably learned to conflict resolve in those moments. And so she was looking back at me as a 16-year-old girl instead of my mother. So yes, she's still my mother, but she's having her own experience. So of course a mother could be jealous of their child. I,
Girl, I love that clip with
yes,
Marlon.
it was beautiful.
Yes, yes. And I agree with T. I mean, it's not unlikely. I mean, it sucks. And I'll be honest, like, coming from, I'm a mama's girl through and through. And I always tell my mom she is the perfect girl mom, because she always made me and my sister feel so empowered and beautiful. So when I would interact with, and even now when I interact with people and they're like, my mom used to call us bitches, or my mom would call us sluts, like, it breaks my heart, because I know that my primary source of support in what molded me into the confident woman that I am today was my mother. So if those types of words came from out of my mom's mouth, from a real point of view, like, I don't know that I would be okay. So I always, feel something so deeply for women who have experienced that, and that have they have to face the world with the person that they came from, speaking to them in that way, or, viewing them in that way. So I mean, from that angle, I've never experienced it personally, but when I hear it and I think about it, it just really makes me sad. And I know that's probably just very generic, but it's honest. It really makes me sad because I know how much that type of support still to this day. I can call my mama and she gonna be like, I love my baby. She is so beautiful, all of this stuff, and I can't imagine anything else coming from her mouth because that's my safe space. So hearing that other people's safe spaces are compromised in that way, I can't lie. That really makes me sad.
And so from that, I kind of shared that, yeah, I could not even imagine having that type of relationship with my mom where she speaks to me in that manner because we do everything together. We are good friends, confidant, and I can feel the hurt. I can feel the pain in me knowing that there are some women out there going through that as well, which then led into me kind of sharing about a client having an epiphany that she does not feel emotionally safe with her mom. She has never felt emotionally safe with her mom from young until now as a grown adult. And so there is this idea that I don't care to be around you. You know, her mom wants more quality time, to be invited to more things. And she's like, I don't want that. I don't want to be around you. I don't like being around you. I don't feel like I could be myself around you, which led Myra to go into sharing a similar situation about her niece.
My niece is 18 years old, and she's not my sister's child, but in black families, your cousin become your, how it goes.
Right.
And her and I, we just had a conversation like that today. She's at that age now where she realizes that her mom is selfish in a lot of ways, that she is the victim and everything, and she's like, I know that I can't live like this. Now she's falling apart, as we're having this conversation, as she should. But I felt like in that moment, not only was she being very vulnerable and real, but it was almost like a transformative moment for her as she goes into young womanhood, where it's like, I gotta choose me, Lucius. I
I
gotta
gotta
choose
put me
me.
first.
Yeah. And
That's
it
my
it
favorite.
yeah, it broke my heart, and we're having a conversation, and it was very sobering. But having, again, I feel so deeply for anybody who experiences that, being around her since she was a little girl and up to her 18th birthday a few months ago, knowing that that day was going to come. It was inevitable that eventually she was going to see and really understand who her mom was, and knowing that that was going to be a relationship she was going to have to grieve while her mom was still.
So sad, right? Oh my gosh, my heart. So in this next segment, I asked about mother enmeshment with their daughters. So just like we have mothers that have the jealousy and frustration with their daughters, we also have the other end of the spectrum where the mother is wanting their daughter to be the best friend. I want you to do everything with me. We're gonna wear the same clothes together. And it becomes this, I can't live my life without you. I don't want you to live your life without me. You were born to be my everything. You were born to be the love that I never had or the love that I didn't get from my mother. And while some on the outside looking in that may be on the other end of the spectrum think that this is love and this is amazing and may feel that they want that relationship, a lot of us know that that is also not a healthy relationship and can also lead to toxic qualities. It really just can enhance itself to toxic qualities.
Yeah. I could see how that would be maybe looked at both ways. Like you said, like it's something that maybe people wouldn't notice as being like an abusive or traumatic, but I could see how it would be because I mean the first thing that came to mind was codependency. Like you're so forced into codependency at a very young age. Because I mean, I guess I should give the context is I think it's codependency because, a parent and a child relationship should have certain boundaries. And I guess in my experience has been most of those types of mother daughter bonds are not the healthiest because there probably weren't a lot of boundaries. That's my assumption here, but um, I could see how that would create a lot of issues with like an individual being just that, an individual, learning to take up space and um realize that you can have, other healthy relationships. Like it's just so much. It's so many aspects to it, and I definitely think we have a lot in common, but there's so many um scenarios that I feel like we can find a slight difference that we've never seen before, we won't be familiar with. But just like humans are different and relationships are different, there is different there are different things in mother daughter relationships that could show up and be just as detrimental, I think.
Now, this is where I had a light bulb moment. Now, remember earlier on in the episode where Myra and Tee were talking about two children interacting with each other when you think of you as the daughter and your mom as the mom, right? So, in that moment, I shared that I had this epiphany of if that's how we look at it, then it really is the child and the mom looking for a friend when we talk about that codependent and enmeshment relationship. They're looking for the friend that they never had in their mom, in their sisters, in their relationships, whatever it is that they did not get. The inner child of your mom is just looking for a friend. And if she sees it in the child in you, that's all she wants. So it's almost about I want to enjoy you. I want to play with you. I want to show you my toys. I want you to, let's wear the same clothes. And the mom is looking for the best friend she never had. Now, some of you, if you're catching it, you're catching it. If you're not, you may have to kind of listen to this over and over again. But that was the picture that I had in my mind is two big people engaging with each other. But if you look deeper, it's two kids engaging with each other. And while one kid wants freedom, the other one is like feeling the abandonment of, I just want you to be my best friend in the whole wide world. And I compared it to Chucky, right? Like we are going to be friends till the end, you and me, forever, always. And I just feel like that opened a new window for me when we talk about the mother wound, especially the enmeshment and the codependency.
And not just the daughters and the mothers. Think about how many mothers have sons and the sons become their men. Like, this is a
Yeah.
very real thing. I'm going to build
Mhm.
you up to be smart, athletic, the protector, the gentleman, because those are all the things that maybe your father wasn't, that I never experienced. And now I'm expecting for you to bring that to me first because I built you up to be that. So when the man finds a partner, they get married, they do different things, it's like, wait a minute. I built you up to do this. Your mom comes first. And that becomes a conflict. And I feel like that mother wound expands itself out at that point because then it's impacting the person's spouse. And this person comes in and they're like, okay, wait a minute. What's going on? But it
Mhm.
can go so many ways, like T said. And even with it going so many ways, I do feel like it's really important to highlight that no relationship is perfect. You can do your absolute best to raise a child, and there is something that you could have possibly done better. There is some dynamic of the relationship that may be a little imbalanced, and that's nature. Nature is not all. It's always going to be something that's evolving. It's always going to be something that we're learning. And I feel like that's another thing because people sometimes will look at their dynamic and think that it's hopeless or think that they just have this one off situation where there's everybody got shit with them. Everybody. And that's okay. And when I say that's
Absolutely.
okay, that doesn't mean like we're just going to accept it and be unhealthy and not be whole. It's more so like, okay, this is what we have to navigate, or I have to navigate on my own, because now I'm starting to see that too much of anything could potentially be harmful as well.
Good stuff, right? Good stuff. So in this next section, I asked what the next step is after becoming self-aware about your motherhood. So in the very beginning, T talked about awareness and grace. And I wanted to know what was the next step to helping us move through the motherhood.
I think you have to commit to the process, and along with giving yourself the grace and the love and the compassion, just know that there's no necessary time frame on this. These things took years to develop, and it's a good chance they could take years to heal. So just, coast through it. Go go with the flow. I know that's such a term we hear, but it really is go with the flow, because things are going to come up that you just won't be able to predict. And so you have to take it step by step.
Okay, so I confirm the first step is self awareness with giving grace, and the second step is community. Now, I asked about what would be the third step to moving through the healing process of the mother.
I would say seek out support. Go to therapy. Don't miss your appointment. If you don't reschedule, like really go to therapy. And if you can't go to therapy for whatever reason, seek out, other people who may be in the same space that you're in, that you can at least be like a sounding board with. I feel like community is everything. If you can be honest, if you can, get things outside of your body, you're doing yourself the biggest favor by doing that. Because a lot of times I think that we view, and I think it's a social media thing where it's like, I go into the dark night of the soul, or I'm in hiding and I'm healing, then I emerge. No, you can heal and have community around you. You can heal and still seek wise counsel. Maybe if it's not a parent, it's another elder, or it's someone who, you feel comfortable talking to. Like whatever it is, I really think that giving yourself the space to establish some type of community or get some type of support while you're going along this journey, it helps out tremendously, because there is no time frame of what your journey will look like, as T stated. And I don't think someone who has experienced um, loneliness previously, going through this traumatic experience, should be lonely going through the healing process. I'm just really big on community, and I do feel like we live in a world now where you have social media, you have so many ways to connect with other like-minded people. It could be as simple as you searching on TikTok mother wounds. You would be surprised how many people have made videos talking about their experiences. And when you see that, you realize, like, I'm not alone. Other people have had these weird dynamics. Other people are navigating through this as well. And that in itself is so magical to me. Like, we really don't have to be on an island in 2024, because we really live in a world now that yearns connection, especially post COVID. So, really giving yourself, that space to get support, build community, because that's going to be the other part that sees you through your process of healing.
As we kind of round this out and wrap it up, one of the last questions that I ask is what if someone isn't ready? What if they're aware? What if they understand where they're at in life and they're just not ready to do the work? outside of giving themselves grace, what else should they be doing? What else can they do?
In addition to, like you said, giving the grace, um, just knowing, like I think I said before, there's no time frame. So, if and I know people say knowing is half the battle, but I think that's true. Like, because once you know, you actually do things on a subconscious level that prepare you to actually take the steps and to, complete the actions. But I honestly value knowing a lot in this time because, even the example that Tamara gave, we are in such a busy um a busy environment with no community. People are literally waking up every day, going to work, coming home, and almost like robots. So I really feel like there is so much power in just knowing that that's a step taken to just be aware and see what happens, see what changes, see what shifts.
Yes, I agree. Just being aware, and again, not you can't perfect a healing journey. You can't perfect a journey, period, that's connected to your spirit and your transformation. So accepting that part of you, like, I don't want to fuck with this person right now, that's okay. That's okay. And allowing yourself to work through those baseline feelings of anger, maybe shame, maybe rage, like all of these things, believe it or not, as you experience them, are still very much a part of the journey. So the journey is inevitable once you know, as my good sis T just said. That's the truth. Yeah.
Now, see, now you see why I couldn't just replay this over again or re-record this over again. It was so, so good. It was so, so good. So I hope this was helpful. I hope if this is something that you were dealing with or didn't know you were dealing with, understanding about the mother wound, I hope that you will go follow my good Libra sisters, my Venusian queens, Tamira and Tamika. All of their information will be in the show notes. There's also going to be a book recommendation, The Mother Hunger. It is a really good book, and it is what got the conversation started. So I will link that in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for listening. Now, take these ideas and go make them a reality. Prioritize the pleasure that you deserve. Please rate, review, and share this with more women so that they can discover this community. I appreciate you being on this journey with me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Owning Pleasure as a Black Woman. And I hope today's conversation has inspired you to embrace pleasure in all aspects of your life. Remember, your voice matters in this journey. Share your thoughts and experiences by leaving a review and stay connected with our community by joining our email list. The link is in the show notes. Together, we're redefining what it means to savor life and celebrate the joy in just being you. Until next time, keep prioritizing your pleasure because you are deserving. Take care and stay tuned for more empowering discussions. Bye.